Hi, here's another one. This one's going to be pretty straightforward. It's another Aurora song, as you know. Through the eyes of one of those children. It's it's in C major. Hey, C D E F G A B C. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and then back to 1. Ooh, yeah. It's going to be pretty straightforward. No deviations. Nothing even approaching a different note. The only thing that's not going to be usual is how many different parts we've got. Oh my goodness. Loads of piano there. And a fair amount of auroras as well. Let's see how this all works. Yeah, let's sort this out. Hang on, am I on the right view? I am. You just can't see anything on that one. Right. Here we go. So, starting off, just got this slow intro of a C. Just slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we get some C's on the piano too. Let's have a look at those. Here we go. We've got that C that we started on, and we've got that C down there. Sounds a little sharper in musical than it does in Aurora. Maybe Aurora is slightly flatter than a general C. It's covered by a train. And the only other thing we have is Aurora's voice. It's not quite as straightforward as that rhythmically. Rhythmically, I guess, is where we've got something else going on here, because well, we could count 4 here. We could go, world is covered by hard trails, and that's 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. And that works for some of the rhythm, but it doesn't work for other parts. And for instance, that covered doesn't go covered, it goes covered. So that particular set of beats doesn't quite work here. Later on we're going to get a clearer outlook on what's going on with the beat, so I'll talk about it later on. Alright, but bear in mind that we are kind of in 4 here, but kind of not. Scars we cover up with pain. Yeah. So these two first things, they have very similar rhythm to them, but they have very different notes. Okay, so that one there, we get the 3rd of the chord, goes back to the C, which everything's on, and then we go all the way up to the 4 and back to the 3. 3 and 4 really close together. The 4 in major, that's the one that is the most sort of exciting. One of the most exciting anyway, because it's a semitone away, it's only right next to another note, and we're playing with both of those straight away, so no straightforward pentatonic stuff here, none of that stuff. Already straightforward, going for the most emotional comparisons between two notes there, the 4 and the 3. And then the next one we get, well, this one's very different. Rhythm really similar, but we've got some shorter notes. Scars we open up with pain, and a few slides as well. Slides up and we. Okay, so a few different prosodic elements. The main thing though, is it seems like we're going for some more pentatonics to begin with there. We get the 3 and the 5 and the 2. Interesting jump from the 5 to the 2. And then instead of going to the 1, we actually go straight past up with pain, and we land on the 7. So that B is right next to the 8 or the 1 when we get to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is back to 1, 1, 8. Right? So the 7 is right next to that. So we get this very strong dissonance. Both of these notes being held at the same time. It's very difficult for our ear to hear that clearly. So it is this kind of beating, that kind of thing going on. Can you hear that? So both of those notes are right next to each other, fighting even in our eardrums for supremacy, which is really cool. Such a stark dissonance, not a weird note, not something that we might get, like we might, for instance, in a much darker thing, instead of getting that one, we might get that one, right? That's the flat 2, and that would have a really, really nasty feeling to it. But this, it just has a sort of like melancholy pain to it, something like that. If we had a big whole chord here as well, it would soften the blow. If we had that kind of major 7 chord, we've had those a few times in Aurora's back catalogue already, but here we just have the 2 notes, the C and the B, and so it's stark as can be, stark as can see, and it's yeah, sad, you know, basically. The first one, very, very plain, very straightforward, still with the 4 to 3. The second one then, much more grinding, sort of emotional turbine. Do turbines grind? I don't know. Anyway, next part.
Watch them preach in sour lies.
Yeah, this is definitely not exactly the right melisma here. Sunlight, sunlight, but it's something like that. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit more of that. We didn't really have any melismas in the first bit, but we get 2, well, 3 here really. Them ching sour, right? And sour is quite fun because sour, we sort of think of sour as a 1-syllable word a lot of the time, but really it's sour, sour, and we get that sour lies. Yeah, so much more jumpy here, higher as well, and we have again C. Now this C is an octave higher, and so the B that it comes after is also an octave higher, and we don't stop on it. What's going on with this string? We still just got the C in the accompaniment, but yeah, that feels much more like a classic sort of folky pentatonic melody, but with the that puts it into a slightly different category. Yeah, lovely. And the melismas are well, straightforward, just between 2 notes really each time, but maybe a little bit of these kind of fast ones we see from time to time. Okay, and then
I would rather see this world through the eyes of a child, through the eyes of a child.
okay, so there we, for the first time, we finally get a change to the chord. If we have a look down here, this is what happens. Well, it looks like we actually get an E in the chord. So something like that in the piano. So it's given us a little bit more chord already with the extra E, though that is what the melody sings as well. And then we get the third and the first at the beginning of this 4 chord, an F chord, and it spells out that F major 7 chord. Okay, so just like that first one was sort of indicating that major 7, maybe even major 9 if we consider that note just before. This also is another major 7 chord, these really beautiful, yearning, sweet, 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 sweet chords. And that comes straight on Eyes of a Child, and the eyes, that's where we've got that E against that F, the 3 against the 4, spread across octaves here, but still very poignant, and it comes down into the chord. Now, a lot of melodies would just have these 3 equal phrases, da 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 da. Okay, that last one is much more active, isn't it? But it's more or less the same length as all the others. But this one instead repeats that last bit and uses it as a moment to move off the F chord. Now, we could have moved off the F chord the first time, through the eyes of a child, but it's instead prefers to wait on that F chord of a child, through the eyes of a child. Okay, so we have this lack of resolution going for a lot longer than our melody structure would indicate, like classically. Yeah, and that last one, we've got a lot of pentatonic stuff going on, but we do also still have that 4 just for a moment there. And we've talked about how that E is the most poignant note for that chord, and it does come to a full resolution on that C. And what happens on there is we start getting a little more movement in the piano. It starts doing these different rhythms. Well, that's interesting. Let's talk about the rhythm then. We just had this bouncy rhythm. Ba da 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 da. So that really indicates a kind of 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, which would give us a really heavy 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 feel. So a 12/8 kind of bar length. But then those ones, well, through the eyes, are more like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. You could maybe argue about that, because we could think of this as a 1 2 3 1 2 da 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 ba da 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 1 2 1 and a 2 and a da. You could think of it that way too. But what is interesting is that after that springy 12/8 rhythm, like compound 4 beats, four compound beats, 4 beats that divide into 3, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Okay, I said that several different ways. If you understood one, you understood what was going on. If not, please let me know and I'll try and help. Then we get these crotchets from the accompaniment. So this is not 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So instead of the ba da 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 rhythm, we've instead got ba da 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 da. So we go from that da 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 da, and then we have a slight rhythmic change, a slight metrical change, so which leads us more towards a 6/4 than a 12/8. 1 and a 2 and a. This slow kind of 3. 1 and a 2 and a, rather than 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. You get the difference? It's kind of an interesting one, and it's the same kind of metrical change that happens in Runaway, but kind of in the opposite direction. So in Runaway, we start with the simpler rhythm. I was painting pictures, and then when we get to and I was running far away, da, 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 we go to the other one instead. Here we've got the same kind of thing going on, but in reverse. Okay, all right, nice, simple.
Darker times will come and go.
Big quiver on the voice there, wasn't there? And times, darker times, which is quite nice. Now that's actually exactly the same as the first one, but we have a different accompaniment. The piano plays the same thing, except it doesn't go up to the F, which is really interesting. It avoids that dissonance, and that's probably because on the piano, when you're playing this kind of thing, with the pedal down, all those notes need to hold on. And if you hold on the F and the E, they're going to bleed into each other and make that dissonance much clearer. So I imagine that's what that's avoiding. Okay? Right? So you avoid having that held dissonance in the piano. It's really an interesting choice, because the other dissonance that's coming, we don't care about that being held.
Times you need to see her smile.
Yeah. So this very similar to the second one in the first verse, but this time we don't go doo doo. We don't go up there. We stay on that E for a bit longer on the third of the chord. Da, 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 times you need to. And then we just go up right at the end. Times you need to see her smile. And unlike the previous one, where we hold smile or paint for a while, this goes smile, and it resolves at the end. That said, it doesn't in the accompaniment, it takes a bit longer. So we get, yeah, see her smile. Okay, so it takes a little bit longer, which is an interesting choice. I don't understand it, but yeah, it adds some unpredictability and, you know, baseless excitement perhaps. And then
And mother's hearts are warm and mine. I would
yeah, so this melody wise not quite as extravagant as the previous one. We come in a little bit earlier with and that's our melisma point here. None of the other ones have one apart from mild right at the end, slow change, mild. But most of these are just notes. Is it that? No, it's not. Right? So we go for the same note at the beginning of the bar, but then not. We end in the same place, and instead of sa lies, so we already go lower by the time we get to where lies was. We're on a lower note. Interesting change, slightly sour, I would say, a little more uncomfortable, less mild really than the sour lies that came before them. That said, the accompaniment is really soft. We've got a change of chord, a new chord, number 6, A minor, and then we go go to our F, which we've had before, but we didn't have it this time. Last time we had just the C last time. And this time, okay, so really different part just in this section. The first two sections of both verses were very similar, but this one very different. We have a slight extra bit of piano as well, so doing something like just adding a little more to the chord, the third there, make it a full F major chord, which is not in the melody. Well, it is straight away, but then it goes away from that. Okay, and then this next part, let's hear it.
Feel this world through the skin of a child, through the skin of a child.
Very similar. We've got a little bit of that shiny sort of violin synth kind of sound in the background coming through just on individual notes there, which is really nice. Have I notated that at all? I don't think so, really. Oh yeah, a little bit there. Just coming in on that one, and then coming in on that other one. Nice. And yes, this is similar to the previous section. Maybe slightly more movement in the piano, but very, very similar. And the melody does exactly the same thing. And repeats. Oh, I guess the one thing that's different is we've got that moving bass. 1, 5, 8, 1, 5, 8. And it's doing that as we go through that skin of the child. That sounded very, very weird. I apologise. Then we get this jaunty old instrumental section. Let's have a look at this. Yeah. So nice. One of the irregularities about, or one of the unusualnesses about this song is that we have these 3-bar sections. So it's da 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 da, this one, and then dee, dee, dee. Something like that. Normally in a song you would have 2-bar sections or 4-bar sections. This one regularly has 3s, which sets it as quite an unusual thing rhythmically. It's got that extra bar of space at the end, but it doesn't have space in this one. We have a little bit more active of a melody in that section. The first bar, very, very similar to, but very similar to our verse, only it does something a little bit different. It doesn't jump da 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 da. It goes down from 3 to 2 da 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 before going up to the 4. Okay, and that's all fine. And then it ends on the 5, a little bit higher than normal. And then we have this, which I guess is like da da da, but it's just its own kind of thing, really. And then we go into a different one. We don't go to what we might expect, which is something like that. We don't go to that. Let's hear what we have. Yeah. So we have I mean, something like our third section that just happened. We have the 6 chord, the 4 chord, but then we immediately change back to the 1 chord. And we have suddenly a 4-bar section here, really, which is a curious change. Yeah, with that. it's sort of imitating the melody without absolutely aping it. That is very like the previous melody in that third section, and then it has this finish to it. So it's like the eyes of a child, and the same held note over that 4 chord as well. So it's sort of piecing it together. It's almost like a meditation on the melody, or an improvisation on the melody. Not exactly doing exactly the same thing, but a variation. And then we get this thing at the end. So we've just walked down this melody, and then we sort of walk it back up. Where are we going with that? To a very similar place. It's 1 note difference, and you can see this on the score, but it goes, this time we have that G instead. The first time we had an E. Second time, okay, but otherwise exactly the same melody, only without that end part leading in, but with a lot of C at the end. So that's kind of similar to our verse sections, but only in 3 sections, and only the first one followed our rule of 3 bars. So that's curious. Yeah, wonder why it's so short. I guess because we don't have that repeated one on the C chord that time. But it sounds very close, but it's just that little bit of deviation that probably makes this song have some legs, because keeping something going for 4.5 minutes with no deviation, difficult. That said, there's something coming, but we'll see what that is after verse 3. Yeah, this is where I should be sat at a piano really, but let's see if I can do these. Oh no. That's basically what's going on in those harmonies now. Those by themselves don't really sound like what's going on. We've got C's again now. So we've got that C. Okay. Much more complex sound with these 3 voices, and they're not doing the traditional thing that Aurora's harmonies would do of spelling out triads like that. They're not equally spaced like that. 1 3 5 1 3 5. What's that? 1 3 5 1 3 5. Not doing that. It's actually 2 3 5. So these 2 are maybe what we would expect, but that lower one is higher than we would expect, making this very lovely add 9 color here. And then as we move human, it moves down. Now we could think of each individual voice here having its own trajectory. Our classic melody. This lower one, well, we'll come back to that. Higher one. So that's working in thirds with the other one. And then this lower one. It's almost like we've come to the second part of the verse early. And it ends, unlike the others, which consonantly embody the chord at the end there, it ends on that major 7 again. So straight away from the first chord we've got our dissonance that we're so familiar with, and yeah, makes us cry.
That is when you let them in.
Yeah, really nice. Now, I agonized over this, and I am going to have one more listen to it, because my analysis does not match my brain here.
When a human strokes your skin, that is when you let them in.
I think it is what I've written. Okay, I don't think we even get a re-triggering of that C, but it's holding on in the piano in the background, and beautifully this time we don't get the this resonance. We get this one to start with. Now this is really lovely stuff. There might be a 7 in there, but actually I don't think there is, and I think that might make it too much. But we've gone from having these two a bit too close together, and the top two pretty comfortable, to having these two pretty comfortable, the lower two, and the top two much too close together. Yeah, so you get the... That's the E and the F that was specifically avoided earlier. Here it is. Really, really pinging through. Oh, by the way, also they didn't avoid it in the instrumental when we got... In fact, we probably got all of those 4 notes right next to each other, just descending into the reverb space. Yeah, so that's what we start with there then. We start with a C, an E and an F. Lovely stuff. Then we have, yeah, this kind of that is. We lose that lower note, and then they all have is really short. That is. And there's just a little melisma there, and then they come to this well, diminished chord, but it's still over the C. So what it really sounds like is an unresolved, like 5 chord, which is an unusual resonance for an Aurora song. We don't normally get diminished. Well, I mean, diminished are rare anyway, but we don't normally get that kind of 5/7 thing that is so common in classical music. It's not common in Aurora's music at all. And so, as you might expect, we don't resolve it exactly like we potentially should. Each of these voices moves down. Then you let them in. That one is very classic. When you let them in. Well, that's the melody, isn't it? We've heard that before. That is where you let them in. And this low one. That is when you let them in. Now, in a classical circumstance, we would probably go, when you let them in. But we avoid that cliche. When you let them in. And we end up with that beautiful, fully formed C major 7 chord, all 4 notes there, and being held. Yeah, very lush, very, very emotive. What about in our third section then?
Let them in before they go.
This is really difficult to tab out, and it feels like there are like emerging a 4th voice from time to time. In the pan, it seems like sometimes there are some on the right, sometimes there are some on the left. What I think we definitely got is thirds between these top 2 parts. So we get the melody of the first verse. Okay, and we get a thirds over the top of that as well. And then they just separate for that last one to get that open 5th. So the top one's stopping on the major 7 of that chord. You know, got to keep it in there somewhere, that tension, that beautiful, yeah, crisis in your eardrums. But then this lower voice, I might have done an amalgam here of a couple of different ones, but it sounds good anyway. So we're here. Let them in before they go. So much more jumpy than the other voices, and that's part of what makes me think there might be other voices going on there. Let's just hear all those voices together, shall we? So. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So they're all, well, we've got two really, really closely locked together, and then another giving us sometimes notes that are the chord that we would expect, and sometimes not. Chord-wise, again, we've just got the C here, so this isn't like our second verse where we got the 6 and the 4 back to the 1. We've just got that. Maybe with the E as well. That seems to be what I've suggested there. Yeah, these voices, well, they start with the C and the E in that chord, and also an A, so that kind of is a hint towards the A minor chord. Those are all the notes we've got, but it doesn't sound like an A minor chord, does it? It sounds like a C6, if anything. And yeah, we've got the B very commonly in this chord. We have one moment where we have the C, the A, and the D. So we have those, and then those, and then yeah, the G down there. So that big spread on the last chord, where we've got an octave and a half between the do and the do, almost an octave and a half. Yeah, so the voices there, in a very unconventional way for Aurora's music, interweaving and doing different things. Yeah, really cool. What about this next one?
I would rather feel alive with a childlike soul, with a childlike soul.
Yeah, well, very, very similar to the beginning. In the piano, we've just got that C. We fall to the F again. With a childlike soul, it doesn't resolve. And we just get that C by itself, but the 4 is still echoing on in the acoustic. Doesn't resolve this time. That's really cool. As well as that, yeah, we have this really lush vocal arrangement for the first part with a childlike soul, but then the second one with a childlike soul just on its own. Yeah, I can't really explain what's going on here, and again, I think there's extra voices that come in from time to time. But we've got a huge amount again of that B, and that means a whole lot in this context because we've got the F in the bass. So the melody, childlike soul, working as usual with that major 7, but with the B, well, it's not the C anymore. So what does the B have to resonate against? Well, it's actually still a C. In that F chord, there's still a C. So the we get both of those at the same time, and it continues on, as well as the E. So this last chord here, I can't really show you exactly how many different notes we've got going on there, but it's a lot more dissonant than the ones we've come to expect so far. The other interesting moment is alive. So really what's happening here is we do have triadic movement from that to that to that to that, and then yeah, we get those, and then those again, but we get a G in the bass, so we get that at the same time as we've got C, this big old thing, And then I've even put 5 voices on this one. Yeah, I can't really hear exactly what's going on there, but it's very lush, very intricately wound, all these voices very close to each other. Yeah, and it slightly clears up as we hit that F chord, but then, like I say, we have these dissonances. Oh, yeah, hard to play. Those with that as well in there. Right, lots going on. And while the voices peter out, we still keep that F going until what? Until what? A tonal climax. Hooray! It's been a while. Boy. Well, this is the first entry in Aurora's music of what is known as a magic chord sequence. Okay, the main thing here is that we have chord 6 followed by chord 4 followed by chord 1 followed by chord 5. Now there might be many songs you can think of with this chord sequence. There's a whole song about it, which was viral at one point in the world. People have moved on, but you can still find it. It's by The Axis of Awesome, and it just strings together absolutely tons of songs that use this. Now most of them admittedly use it from the 1 first. 5, 6, 4. Okay, so that's the more common way around. But from the 6 first is known as that sort of the sad younger sister or something of the original chord sequence. It's so easy to make music in that particular chord sequence, and yeah, this is what it is. You know, I'm not going to berate it. It's quite beautiful what happens in this song over this chord sequence, isn't it? One of the things that's really wonderful about it is that it's just so drawn out. We've still got the 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3 waltz rhythm of the accompaniment. So that's just going over and over, just like it was before. But the vocal lines are no longer wordy, are they? They are noisy, different vowel soundy. So yeah, 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 much more smooth, lots of sliding. And it's in thirds to begin with here. And they slide back up again, and they hold just over the bar line for that chord change before they move down. And they don't actually meet the chord change to begin with. They need to slide again. And also they stop being in thirds there. So we go from thirds just to 1. Okay, I think they unify rather than the other voice jumping out. And then we have this big octave slide all all the way from one G up to another G, again with thirds here, but they actually go in opposite directions after this. It doesn't go wouldn't make much sense, would it? So we get So unlike the last time where we went over the bar, where we were actually suspending the previous chord and then coming down to meet the next chord, this time where we hold over the bar, we're actually, well, one of our voices has already got to that chord. The lower voice, it has gone from the chord that we were on to one that isn't in that chord, but is in the next chord. So that's an anticipation. We've had a few of those. The other one is a little more complicated because it is in this chord and that note is actually in the next chord as well, but we move away and so we go from an unprepared dissonance in the previous chord to a suspended dissonance in the next chord. Really nice, really emotive. Doesn't actually have much explanation I can give you, but it's just a nice melody, isn't it? Simple as well. We're mainly on the, well, in the main melody part, we're mainly on pentatonic notes here. 3 1 3 2 1 5 5 6 5. Okay, what about next one? Same chords in the background, different melody in the piano, very similar to begin with, but we do get that added D there, and there's that B in the F chord, really nice, and then it goes higher. Now the high third there, having a high third like that, even if it's not in tune, it's a very poignant thing. Having this be the top chord, top note of the chord, feels quite strong, feels understandable. Also, doesn't feel very very emotive, but having this third at the top, well, it feels a lot more vulnerable in a way. I think it feels really like it's reaching for something. Very similar melody here with the R's. They last about the same length, but instead of going down, here we're going again, pentatonic notes, but here it's 3 6 6 6 5. The underneath part is a little more adventurous, so we get the 3 and the 4 there, and that's again over the bar line between these two chords. The A minor, they're fitting very nicely with the A minor, and then we hit that for a moment on the change of bar before the lower voice goes up to meet the chord, but then they both come down before the chord is finished, so we get this extension of a major 9 on that chord just for a moment there. Now, nothing wrong with that, that's an anticipation really, the whole bar there, one of these long anticipations that Aurora does. And we get a third voice. Yeah, no, it is that. And they all move up by step. move to a slightly different organization on that last one. Yeah, really nice. And that last one, again, we have that B in the melody just at the top of the chord. It's a non-pentatonic note, so that's that I would say, because the theory says so, is the most emotive point. I don't really actually think that, but I think it's a really nice, soft, yeah, vulnerable way to end the melody. And then we come in with our next part. So this is very similar to the previous one, but we've got an extra voice. And they kind of, yeah, dissipate to just one there, but we did have 3 voices to begin with. 2 here, and then just 1 there. Yeah. So that was very similar to the second part, wasn't it? Because we have that melody on the top now. But this time, I guess the main melody is that middle one. And yeah, we have that lower one. Really, that's the only thing that is changed between the 2 sections. Is what it does there. Whereas in the other one, it goes. So interesting that they have a really similar sound, but just in the minutiae there's a difference. But then it's this last part here that makes all the difference, I suppose. Here, we go up. I think it's quite nice how Aurora enunciates the change with a slight change of syllable as well, or at least a glottal stop. So it's like there's just a slight difference, even when the note isn't changing, to indicate that someone's note is changing, or at least there's a wave going through the ensemble. It's nice. Oh, well, this time no 5 chord. We stop on that 1 chord and we go down to 2 voices. They become intermittent like mine there, as we continue this 1 chord, just 1 chord. Well, we still have that that B coming through at the top, but it doesn't have the comfort of the G to give it a reason. It's stuck on top of this C, feeling a little bit silly, no, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit, yeah, vulnerable. I know I say vulnerable quite a lot for that kind of thing, but that is what's going on. And yeah, then we have this outro bit. So we suddenly, in a slightly brash way, I think, entered with this high piano. We don't have the low piano going on here, but we have this kind of thing. And that keeps going and keeps going. And we have these interesting melody lines over the top as well. Now, are these recognizable? Have we heard these earlier in the piece? There's maybe a little bit more before I tab out here, but yeah, this just by itself. I love a child, maybe. Da 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 da. That sounds like nothing that I'm familiar with. Please don't leave me. Yeah, again, ending on that B for the C major 7. Uncomfortable, and it's being emphasized quite heavily on the piano as well up there, but this one's lower. And actually both extra melody parts emphasize that, and they emphasize the F, the other note that is of utmost strength and emotion against this. Really strange extra notes there. And then we have this kind of fun thing going on. Yeah, that really feels like a glitchy sample just going round and round and round. I think I can hear some of those in the background as well. But then you hear a big breath, and that B comes through. So even in the last moment there, where there could have been a huge resolution, no. We end with this. Yeah. Wow. So simple in a lot of ways, texturally especially. But yeah, a lot more going on in the details than a lot of the other pieces maybe. Cool. Well, where in the world do we put it in this? This is difficult. Let's have a think. Well, instrumentation is simple as muck. I don't think we can put it anywhere in instrumentation, because even Awakening, while I don't think all the instrumentation works very well on Awakening, it does nonetheless have more interesting instrumentation. Pardon me. Texture is a difficult one because I would say, while the texture is very straightforward a lot of the time, it's really well controlled. It's got some really beautiful use of acoustic, which is maybe lacking on the more poppy cuts. So I think I'm going to give it a place. I think we can knock off Conqueror, and we can knock down Awakening. And Lucky, yeah, I suppose so. Running with Wolves does have more fun in the texture, I suppose. Then again, it's slightly artless, so maybe let's knock down Running with the Wolves as well. I think that seems more or less fair. It's sort of playing a different game, so I'm not entirely sure that is the appropriate place to put it, but that's where I'm putting it. Okay, structure. The structure is very different to normal Aurora songs. We've talked about this before. It's strophic, so we have verse, verse, okay, something that sounds like a verse but is an instrumental, and then another verse, and there's no real chorus. There is then that climax at the end, that big long coda. So it's very special in structure. It's not super complicated in structure, but I think that just because it is so different, we have to put it above these guys. I think Murder Song still has more going on, so I'm not going to put it above Murder Song. And I was tempted to put Winterbird above it, and arguably under Stars as well, but we're going to keep it as that for now. I think that's fair. Harmony, I mean, the harmony is very straightforward. We do have some fun clashes, and those should not be underserved in this placement. So we're going to say bye bye to Conqueror again. But I think, yeah, we're looking at probably Under Stars and Runaway, and I went too far. Those are the only ones we're going to move down here. Cool. Melody. I mean, melody is its absolute pinnacle, isn't it? It's the main thing. And that, you know, I don't find it a very exciting melody, but it does have some really nice elements, and it really, you know, steals the show in the final act, I think. So let's say, yeah, I think it's better than Winter Bird's melody. And maybe not better than Runaway's melody. Are we fine with that? Yeah. Okay, and then we've got rhythm. Well, it does the same thing as Runaway, and I have put Runaway at the top, but Runaway does do it in a much more dramatic way. Do we think it's better than Murder Song's rhythm? I think it's a bit rich, isn't it? We don't have much rhythm going on. It's really just two main elements. So I think we might have to drop it down even below In Boxes, I think. Conqueror has a strong rhythm, but it doesn't have an interesting rhythm. So yeah, I think that's where we're going. Man, Little Boy in the Grass getting knocked off. What is the world coming to? Okay, well, there we are. Let's fill it in blue. Bottom. And let's write in, oh gosh, okay, yeah, what do we write in? T, where are we? Through, oh, that's in blue still. Is it the right size? Yeah, I think so. T, oh no, that's going to be too big. Through the eyes of a child. Ridiculous acronym. Nonetheless, that is what we have. Let us copy and paste it. Okay, so structure is actually where I've given it the strongest thing. Part of that is because Aurora songs at this stage don't experiment with structure very much at all, whereas they do a huge amount with melody and a fair amount with texture. They will end up doing more with texture as well, but yeah. Yeah, so it's coming strong in the structure, partly because there isn't that much competition. But there we are. Yeah, okay. It's done better on there than I might have assumed it would. Cool. Okay, that's our second one for the week. Have another lovely set of days before whatever happens to you happens. Enjoy yourself if you can. I'll see you soon. Yeah. There's what's next? Warrior's next, and then after Warrior, are we on to Home? Warrior and Home. Two very, very different pieces of music. Interesting. See you soon. Bye.